Right, now, these are proposals from the Home Office. They're fresh proposals that will look to change the laws that prevent police from chasing after criminals when they escape by driving dangerously, particularly on mopeds. Now, currently, a police officer could be prosecuted for driving in a careless and dangerous manner whilst pursuing criminals. They could be prosecuted.
That is incredible, isn't it?
But
Only in the UK.
Health and safety.
Health and safety.
But under plans made by the policing minister, Nick Hurd, the police will be offered more legal protection in case of a crash, which could encourage them to make more arrests. Now, why is that? Right, all this arrest. Let's get this. I mean, these criminals, they're mostly thick, but they're not that thick, right? If you go back 4 years, the number of crimes involving mopeds and scooters in London was 866. That's a lot. Right?
Yeah.
But because they know the cops can't chase them, that has risen massively from 866 in 4 years to 24,000.
That is absolutely ridiculous.
24,000.
That is ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. Here's Leroy Logan. Leroy is a retired Met superintendent. We say that is ridiculous. Leroy, what do you say?
Well, it is an exponential growth of that type of crime. But like everything, you've got to make sure you've got the intelligence to target the right sort of people. So you're doing more preventative work as well as just detection work. So I think it's important that in addition to these powers that will help officers to pursue, but do it in a professional way, I would like to think that they're building up on their proactivity so that they're not just reacting to these youngsters driving madly along the road.
You say that, I know, and you've given me all the right buzzwords and everything, all this about being responsible and intelligence and all that sort of thing. But if you watch Police Interceptors on telly, as I do quite a lot, it makes my blood boil that these people drive with impunity, they endanger life, they can do what they want. And what do they get at the end of it, Leroy? They get the same as I would or you would if we parked on a double yellow or a double red line. That's basically what happens to them.
Well, I must admit, that's a totally different issue in terms of the courts. So I'd like to think, yes, they give a lot more protection for officers to perform their role, but obviously officers have to know when to draw back, because sometimes they'll have a helicopter that can monitor them anyway. So, or they'll use different tactics. But I think, like everything, the courts have to reflect the penalties for these people driving recklessly and causing injuries by dangerous driving. So
you may have misunderstood my connection, because it's not a different issue. What I'm trying to say to you is, they know how the police force's hands are cuffed, quite literally, on this. So, as I understand it, these moped people know exactly when they can be chased and when they can't be chased. And, for instance, if they do not wear a helmet, they'll wear a helmet to disguise themselves, but if they do not wear a helmet and they steal a moped or often a motorbike, and any injury happens to them, it's the police who will be responsible as opposed to them. Am I right or wrong?
Well, I think it depends on the actual circumstances. I mean, if someone just throws their helmet off while they're being pursued by the officers, and the officers see that these people are a real danger to other road users and pedestrians, obviously the officer has to judge it accordingly to make sure that it protects the public. So, I mean, you can't just say it's just one size fits all. But like everything, we have to recognise that it's the courts that decide these things. I hear what you're saying about these people know their rights and these people know how to bend the laws and in their favour. But in the end, it's the courts that have to make the decision about what penalties. So that's why I think it's important that officers get the protection and also the courts reflect the penalties to make sure that these people just can't have some smart lawyer to...
on that very subject of smart lawyers, they don't come much smarter than Nick Freeman. Nick is a criminal defence lawyer, and Nick, I don't know if you bask in the title or relish the title or distance yourself from the title, because in the press you're also known as Mr. Loophole.
Good evening. I embrace the title, actually. I was called it by the media, and I have since trademarked it, so I can say nothing other than I embrace it and I welcome it.
Fair enough. Well, what about criminals intentionally exploiting loopholes? We were talking to Leroy there. And Leroy, if you just hang on, we'll come back to you because we've got Sarah and Kate here, I know, who want to chip into this as well. But Nick, from your point of view, do you think criminals intentionally try to exploit loopholes? Is that the main cause for this explosion in moped crime?
I think the criminals are certainly exploiting the lack of police power in terms of these moped incidents. They know that there are very few police on the roads. They know that the police are reluctant to chase, in the same way that the certain people, certain groups are exploiting the fact that powers of stop and search are very limited for political correctness, and they've been abusing that, and that, of course, is now being resurrected. The difficulty we have here is we've heard that the government are going to change the provisions to try and assist the police, but any assistance that they give is inevitably going to compromise public safety. And if somebody is killed or seriously injured as a consequence of a police chase, then unfortunately the police are going to be responsible, and they will undoubtedly be prosecuted, because what is being proposed, we don't know the precise terms, but what is being proposed is that the police will have a higher threshold for dangerous driving. Now, at the moment, driving dangerously is driving which falls far below the standard of the ordinary, competent, prudent driver, which is basically an objective test. And what the government are proposing to do is to sort of say, look, the police have special training, which at the moment is irrelevant, so therefore the bar for them will be set higher. And that's fine and dandy. But what happens if they are driving in a way that for you and I would be dangerous? For them, it isn't dangerous, but they're then involved in an incident where somebody is either seriously injured or worse, they're killed. They have to be prosecuted.
So are you saying?
Just a moment. Just let me finish. One moment, please. You can never compromise public safety and never say that either killing or seriously injuring an innocent member of the public justifies the execution of an arrest.
Well, they could be compromising public safety, Nick. That's the thing.
Are you talking about the villains now?
I'm talking about the villains, yeah.
Yeah, well, they do compromise public safety, but two wrongs don't make a right. And if you have the police tear-arsing after these people, it's going to double the chances of people being injured. Now, we need more police. We need the courts to impose tougher sentencing. We need a whole raft of measures.
So can I just ask you?
Yes.
So can I just ask you then? These proposals, these police pursuit rules that are fresh proposals, are you saying they're not worth the paper they're written on?
I don't know precisely. I haven't seen it. Other than the fact that there are going to be proposals, I haven't exactly seen what the proposals are. No one's actually said what the proposals are.
But can I just chip in?
Moving the bar high.
Can I just chip in here and say, Nick, are you saying that it's a catch-22, that actually by bringing these proposals it might favour the police and give them more power to chase, or give them the power to chase without being prosecuted? But in actual fact,
they're never going to be able to chase with impunity, because in the event
because then the public are involved.
The public are involved, and the police are going to have to carry the can for that.
So why is taxpayers' money being spent considering something like this, when you fully admitted that actually by winning in one aspect, the police are losing in another? Because if a member and you know what, it is worse if a member of the public's involved, because then it becomes a bigger inquiry.
Political talk, isn't it? That makes us all feel safe, as if something's being done.
I agree with you, and you might say that those money should be better spent on putting more police on the roads, which would meet the problem further down the road. So in other words, if someone's on a moped, you radio ahead, you've got another officer on the road waiting down there, maybe with a stinger or something, and the person can be apprehended. But at the moment, there aren't enough police around, and driving dangerously through the streets of London, whether you're highly trained or not, is inevitably going to cause an unjustified risk, in my view. Nick,
thank you very much indeed for your perspective on things. Just finish with you, Leroy. Leroy is a retired Met superintendent. Is it possible for the law to protect both our police officers and any members of the public that could potentially be hurt in a pursuit? Are the police currently able to pursue someone driving a moped without a helmet? I don't think they can. So what about the level of training that is sort of needed? Can we balance both?
Well, yeah, I think there needs to ensure that officers are totally proficient on pursuit driving. I mean, I was a pursuit driver when I was in the Met, and our training was very thorough. But it's like it's the individual. When you're given the training and you know your powers and you know what are the boundaries in which you have to drive in emergency circumstances, it's down to the individual. And I mean, I must admit, even as a member of the public, even when I was, just driving around in my family car or whatever, some of the manoeuvres I see my colleagues or my ex-colleagues now doing, I used to think to myself, that is not in the manual. But they take those risks. So it's like everything. They know the rules, they know what the training is telling them, and they have to work very, very well within them and be as professional as possible. And I know that the courts do look at things in the round so that, they will know what that person is doing. And, they've got dash cams. They've also got the helicopter and certain types of CCTV footage. So all those things are taken into account. And also officers should be doing a commentary. So they do a radio commentary, what they're doing, and it's justifying practically everything that they do. And if they have to continue, they will take into account what are the risks to the public and to other road users.
Leroy Logan, thank you very much indeed. Leroy is a retired Met Superintendent. So there you are. 4 years ago, the number of crimes involving mopeds and scooters, this is just London, 866. Last year, 24,000. I kid you not.
Talk Radio.